Happy Thursday. Happy Together on the Word Thursday. I'm wearing it's Valentine's Day week. So this will come out next week, which means it's after Valentine's Day. And anyways, but I'm excited because it's Valentine's Day week. And you know what? I think I am turning into one of those people that seriously celebrates all of the holidays. I don't know, maybe I'll do something for President's Day. I'll get like a sweater or a shirt that has like the USA flag on it. I don't know, but I'm really into holidays. No one tells you this. Maybe when you get married and become a wife, you just care about these things you never cared about. And not that I never cared about Valentine's Day. Absolutely did. I love Valentine's Day. I love love. I am one of those people I just love, love. Even when I didn't have romantic love in my life, I loved love. Because we're made in the image of God and God is love. So I think it's natural for us all to love love. But I never like was the kind that got Valentine's Day sweatshirts or sweaters or shirts or socks to commemorate the occasion. You know what I mean? Like I appreciated it. I thought it was awesome. I celebrated it when I had someone in my life and I still celebrated it when I did it, but I never, really just geeked out over the stuff around it. And we were in Target. We had a date night. Get this. This is probably one of my favorite nights. Seriously. One of my favorite nights. I've never felt more just married and like old in my life than this night. And it was perfect. Because I'm such an old soul at heart. But it was a Friday night and we both had such a long week. This was probably a couple weeks ago. We both had such a long week. It was for a while, it was just like back to back to back to back to back stuff. And that Friday night, it was freezing cold outside. And we had dinner. We did like a long fast that week. So I fasted for 2 days. Hunter fasted for 3. And that Friday was the end of his fast. And we made this like massive dinner. It was bonza pasta. So it's like chickpea pasta, which is my favorite. And then we put like pesto in it and had like this chicken. It was so fire. And anyways, and then we went to Target. Literally, our date night was going to Target. And we went to Target. We got Hunter some ice cream from Brewster's. And then we went to Home Goods. And then I wanted Smart Sweets, which is my favorite candy in the entire world. I literally have like 2 bags of Smart Sweets a night. They're not massive bags. They're like little bags. But anyways, I have like 2 bags of them a night. They're my favorite treat. And I was like, I really want this certain kind of Smart Sweets. So to Sprouts, it was the best night ever. And I was like, this is life to me. Some people live to go out and to party and to, no, honey, for me, it is the Friday nights that me and my husband are at Target and we don't even really need anything. We wanted to go to Target and I saw this sweater and I was like, I'm getting that sweater. I am getting it because Valentine's Day is coming up and I'm getting a chance to hang out with some girls this Friday and talk to them about Jesus. And I'm so stoked. And I was like, it's February 13th when I'm getting to go talk with these girls. I want something like Valentine's Day-y. So I was like, this is the sweater. Anyways, that's the very long introductory way of saying this is the sweater I'm wearing and it has a heart on it and I absolutely love it. When I was thinking about like coming on today and all this stuff, I was listening to a podcast this morning Stephen Furtick did recently about like protecting your passions, or it was putting your passions in your place. And it was so good. And he was talking all about how we as a world, I think we follow our passion. Like we're told that's good advice. Like find out what you're passionate about and do it. But I think what Pastor Stephen said was really good. And it's something that I'm so grateful God taught me this the hard way. But it was around how passion follows you. You don't follow passion. So like when you ask what you're passionate about, that's not a very good compass for what you're supposed to like actually do for a job or whatever have you. Like your passion, like if you're super passionate about the Lord, it doesn't mean you're going to be a preacher. Like, for most people that's not what it means, right? It means that you go wherever God's taken you, and you with all your heart serve the Lord in that area. And I struggle with this a lot as someone that, when the Lord really caught wind of my heart, and at a young age, I remember at 18, I was at a conference and I saw this woman speaking, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. Um, for a long time, I think that I felt a lot of shame, fast forward 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, I felt a lot of shame around the fact that I um, wasn't like speaking full time, like that I had a corporate job. In fact, and this has, but I'm going to try to find a way to connect this with Together in the Word today. We're going to figure it out. The Lord will provide. We will find a way to connect this to Noah. But I think what's so interesting is, like, for me, even like with my podcast and my corporate job, it has taken me years. I've been in corporate America now for almost half a decade. It is which makes me feel old saying that, but maybe I should just say 5 years. That sounds like way less overwhelming than half a decade. But as someone who like didn't think she'd be in corporate America for very long before like all these things took off, to still be in it for a long time, I felt like that was a failure. And not only that, but I separated the two. I never at my corporate job talked about my podcast. Even like when it hit the Forbes, article, never talked about it. It's funny because like I remember like, my boss is like, how are you? What's new? And like, they just had no idea that I had this like podcast that was doing really well and all this stuff. And why would they have known if I didn't tell them? But I didn't tell them because in my mind, I was like, I don't want to get in trouble I don't want them thinking that like, because I am so committed to all these things outside of work, that I'm less committed at my corporate job. And for a while, I was really successful in my corporate career because I operated out of fear of them like finding out that I did all this other stuff. And of course, I never did it during my 9 to 5 hours. I always did it outside of that. But for the most part, I'll be fully honest. Sometimes it was like during a lunch break, I would record a podcast or whatever have you. But I say that because I don't know, I just feel in my heart to say there is a message in the younger generation that I think is setting people up for failure. And the message is follow your passion. And if you can't figure out how to monetize your passion, you don't have a purpose at anything else. The message is that your passion is your purpose. And what I want to share to you, and maybe you have daughters or sons that are coming up in this day and age where people have told them that, and then they graduate from college and they have no idea what to do with their life because all the jobs that they could get into, they don't want to get into because they're not fun. And they're seeing all these things on social media about people that have figured out a way to monetize their passion, and they're full-time travelers and they get paid for all the trips that they go on. And you're just like, what? And then it's just a mess. And what I would offer you, and what I've learned to be true about my life, and the fact that like my life, y'all, it's taken me a long time to get here, but I'm so at peace with it. Like, I'm in technology sales, which is brutal at times, but I've seen the Lord move more in my tech career than I have in my like podcast career, if you will. And that's always a win. I have a podcast and I write books. I'm working on my 8th book. I'm doing all these things that I'm super passionate about, but my passions are not my purpose. My purpose is to glorify God. We have this thing in our house, and it's First Thessalonians. It says, rejoice always, pray continuously, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. And the reason I wanted that up there is because this is my desk I work at. That's what I want, is a constant reminder that God's will for my life, it's not an occupation. It's not, do I continue tech sales? Do I don't? It's not, do I continue the podcast? Do I don't? It's not what job I get. It's not what church I go to. It is me rejoicing always, praying continuously, giving thanks in all circumstances, and bringing it back to Jesus. And so I don't know why I share that with you, but maybe someone needed that right now. It's like, just because you're not living out your passion doesn't mean you're doing life wrong. And your passion follows you. So, y'all, for me, I'm super passionate about Jesus. I love Jesus. I freaking love Jesus. You can't, like, I can't help but talk about Jesus because he's my Lord and he's my God and he's my Savior and he's who I bow my knees to. And that follows me into my tech career. Do y'all know how many people I've been able to talk to about Jesus in a corporate America environment where there's not a lot of light? So many. And there's been so many people in corporate America that have brought my focus back to Jesus when I've gone off the deep end and comparing myself to others and forgetting that my worth isn't in how much revenue I closed. Y'all, you can see Jesus in so many places. So if you're passionate about Jesus, that will follow you to wherever you go. Okay, let's talk about Noah, which recap. We've been reading about Noah who built an ark, and this will connect nicely because Noah loves the Lord. The Lord's like, you love me, go build an ark. Does Noah identify himself as an ark builder? Is that his new business he's going to open up? No, as we're about to read, the ark was built for a purpose. See, Noah's passion for the Lord followed him into that seasonal purpose of building an ark. But guess what? Now it's about to change. He's about to go into the ark. He's no longer building the ark. He's about to go into the ark. But his passion of loving the Lord follows him from building the ark to being in the ark. It's a good little bridge. Right. Okay, so we're in Genesis 7:17. Dear Lord, thank you for this time. I hope we can all just take a big breath. You are God. We are not. You are good. And you are good to us. I pray these words we're about to read together fill our heart with the reminder of your goodness. All right. The flood engulfed the earth for 40 days. 40, remember, 40 is the number of, we read this last week. What is 40 the number of? 40 is the number of what in the Bible? Oh, testing. That's right. So 40, it represents testing in the Bible. 40 days. Remember, Jesus was tempted for 40 days. Noah was in the ark the flood engulfed the earth for 40 days. Why is that important? Why was it important? The flood engulfed the earth for 40 days. I'm just curious. Aha. Okay, so this is from the Bible Project, which is a great resource. So again, I'm not just Googling things and telling you guys them. I'm making sure I'm looking at it from resources that are reputable. So this is from the Bible Project. But when God flooded the world for 40 days, so 40 is the number of like testing, judgment. So when God sent the flood for 40 days, that was important because he was basically testing the earth for 40 days. He was purifying it. When Jesus went out and was tempted for 40 days, it was a purification process. Excuse me. Let me repeat. Jesus was totally pure. He didn't need to be more purified. It was a strengthening. It was a continuing to build upon the purity that he always and already had. Which I'll be honest, a question I would have, and we're not going to get into this today, but again, together in the word, the purpose of it is not to come at you with all that I know, but more so just an example of how I would read the Bible and where my mind go, giving you permission to read the Bible, not knowing everything. I think so many of us, we think we have to know everything before we read the Bible. When you read the Bible and it leads to questions you don't know the answer to, that's a win. So an example of that right now, I just read the flood engulfed the earth for 40 days. My question was like, well, why is that important that it was 40 days? Remember, God's an intentional God. So there's a reason God engulfed the earth for 40 days. 40 is the number of testing. So God engulfed the earth and water for 40 days of testing. But then I thought about the time Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days. And so Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days of testing. But my question there and still is, well, Jesus was perfect. So did he need to get stronger in the wilderness, even though he was already perfect? But here's the thing. Jesus was fully God and fully human, which I don't, you know, that verse where it's like, my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways. That's what I think about when I think about that. Cause I'm like, I cannot understand that. I don't know how someone, like, that's just so hard. Like, you know, Jesus was fully God and fully human. Like, Jesus got angry, Jesus got anxious. And it just, anyways, my point here is reading the Bible. If when you leave the Bible with more questions than when you went into reading the Bible, that's a great indication you're doing it right. Now, when you have those questions and lean in and try to figure it out, that's where the beauty is. Not just leaving saying, well, that's an interesting thought. It's like actually going, well, I'd love to figure that out a little bit. Y'all, I'm not feeling my hair right now. I'm gonna put a little clip in. So, as the waters increased, they lifted the ark and raised it above the earth. The waters completely overwhelmed the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the waters. The waters completely inundated the earth so that even all the mountains under the entire sky were covered. The waters rose more than 20 feet above the mountains. Like, think about Everest. You know, I saw this thing. I don't know if it's real because it was on Facebook. So definitely real, right? Just kidding. But it was saying how they found out that recently, I don't know how, through science or whatever, but it's very likely Everest was once completely underwater. Hello. Genesis 7:20. Okay, 21. And all living things that moved on the earth died, including the birds, domestic animals, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all humankind. So remember, we talked about this last time. God isn't doing this because he's mean and not interested in giving people second chances. Remember, scripture says he is slow to anger, abounding in mercy. His faithful love endures forever. See, God at the time, remember we read Noah was the only one. Evil completely encapsulated all of their thoughts, their motives, and their heart. Noah was the only one that actually looked to God for anything. So God very much was like, I love humanity so much. I'm not letting anyone suffer in this evilness, this evil territory, which means making a blank slate in his mercy so that Noah's descendants, Noah's family wasn't going to be around such horrible things. Everything on dry land that had been the breath of life in its nostrils died. That had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Remember, the breath of life comes from the Lord. So the Lord destroyed every living thing that was on the surface of the ground, including people, animals, creatures that creep along the ground, and birds of the sky. They were wiped off the earth. Only Noah and those who were with him in the ark survived. The waters prevailed over the earth for 150 days. Let's think about this. Noah builds an ark. Noah builds an ark. He sees rain for the first time. And then he doesn't stop seeing rain for 40 days. For 40 days, Noah and his family. Wait, hold on. This is interesting. So rain starts. God shuts Noah in the ark. I love how, and we're going to go back a little bit. So when we talked about last time, then the Lord shut him in. Can we just imagine Noah here for a second? He was faithful. He built the ark. Now, it won't stop. This thing from the sky, again, he's never seen rain. This wet water from the sky won't stop coming. Noah doesn't know that the ark, well, actually, hold on. Was there big bodies of water at the time of this ark? Okay. So this is interesting. What I just asked is like, what I was thinking was they've never seen rain before, which means they've never seen flooding before, which means it's very likely. My question to the internet and now some reputable sources that just responded or just I just looked up, but I was like, has Noah ever seen a ship before? Because in my mind, I'm like, Noah's never seen rain. He's never seen a flood. He is trapped in this ark and he doesn't know how the ark works. You know what I mean? All he has is this promise from God that God will be with him. Let's go back. Okay, you know what's interesting? All that we read in Genesis. So in Genesis 6:18, God says, I will confirm my covenant with you. Basically saying, like, Noah, this is what's going to happen. Everything's going to die. It's going to be scary, but I'm going to be with you. So Noah knows that. But imagine being Noah in this moment. He's never seen a flood. He's never seen rain. God just locks him into an ark. He's never seen an ark. He doesn't know how an ark works. He has no idea what's going to happen. Can you imagine being in the ark and you feel the water rising beneath you? Like you feel all of a sudden you were on land and now you're not, and it's getting higher and higher and higher. And you're kind of like, what's going on out there? But I don't know what's going on because I'm not looking like what? You know what I mean? Can you imagine? And not only that, but it's not just you. You're with a bunch of animals that stink. And they're probably freaking out because these are land animals, except for the birds who like to fly, but they ain't flying. They're staying in the ark. Can you imagine the craziness that's going on outside, but the craziness going on inside, not just inside the ark, but inside Noah's heart? And he's got this family looking at him. And it's like, God, what? What? And sometimes you will have seasons where you're just like, God, what? But what's really going on is God is protecting you from all this craziness that's going on outside you that you don't even know. I don't know why this is coming to mind, but I remember there's a woman in my life who meant so much to me. Her name was Gwen. She was truly like a second mother to me and my siblings. And I've talked to her about this before. I mean, about her before on this podcast. I know that, but I'm not sure if I told you guys this story. Um, she got pulmonary fibrosis when I was in college, which it basically feels like your lungs are becoming cement, is what it feels like. And she was never a smoker, never a smoker. It's why you will, I'm not being funny here, I'm being serious. Like, please do not smoke. Please do not vape. That, like, stop. It's stop. It's awful for you. And it is killing a generation coming up because we normalize it and it's awful. And I saw firsthand an account of what that hardship could look like for someone. That the irony and the biggest hardship of all was she didn't even smoke. But I saw firsthand what that could do. And for someone to selectively go into that just breaks my heart. Anyways, Winnie carried this book with her the last year she was around, and it was of all her funeral notes. And I remember when she passed January 2020. And we were so upset. But for Winnie, the one thing she cared so much about was her funeral service. And she had the most beautiful funeral service. She really did. It was absolutely stunning. And then a couple months later, COVID hit. And I just remember thinking there's a verse in Isaiah 57 that's like, the righteous perish before their time, but no one asks why. They don't realize it's to protect them from the evil to come. And I think what the Lord put on my heart with that experience was like, I was so upset when he passed, and I was upset how she passed. And, but what God was doing was he was taking her in to his home and to his arms to prevent her from having to experience turmoil and torment that was on its way that we didn't even know about. Like, Gwenny would not have survived COVID, and it would have been so much more painful than it already was. But also, she wouldn't have been able to have her service if she had died even a couple months later because of COVID. And so I say that because sometimes you're going to be brought into a situation, into a season, and you're like, why the actual heck does God have me here? Like, what's going on? And what I encourage you to recognize is maybe God isn't bringing you in to keep you from something, but to protect you from something. And as he's protecting you from something, you are birthing within you a faith that you would never have otherwise. I bet Noah felt so helpless. What can he do? What can he do for his family, for these animals? What can he do? But every day just have the faith that says, okay, God. See, God told him, God told him it would rain for 40 days and 40 nights. You know what God didn't tell Noah? And I'm going to make sure I say this correctly, so I'm going to go back. You know what God didn't tell Noah? How long the floodwaters would prevail for. In Genesis 24, it said the waters prevailed over the earth for 150 days. The rain came, the wind blew for 40 days and 40 nights. And God let Noah know about that. But God did not tell Noah how long he was going to be sitting in the aftermath. Oftentimes, the hardest storms to bear aren't even the storms themselves. It's the aftermath of the storm. It's like, I remember when I was told I didn't have bone cancer. And it was like, hooray, let's go. That's amazing. I am still, this is over a year later, I am still working through in therapy the PTSD of your life just changing like that, being engaged and then being told you might have cancer. I'm still working through that. I'm still working through your life just as you know it changing on a dime. That's not a saying, I don't think. Changing on a whim? I don't know. Flipping on a penny. I'm in the South. I can make up things. As my grandma would say. But the second storm, the one that comes from having to pick up all the pieces of the first storm, sometimes that hits harder. You know, it's like your kid gets in the car accident and they're okay. But for you, the hardest part is now just starting. Because guess what? They're going to have to go drive again. And you might be freaking out every day that they're going to have to drive and they're going to get another accident. For you, you might have gotten broken up with and it sucked. But the real test of faith, the hardest part is going to be dating again. It's not just the breakup of that one guy that sucked. It's like, no, now I don't want to be alone. I want to get married. Okay, but now I have to put myself out there again. And it's what comes after. And so Noah knew 40 days, 40 nights. I wonder if Noah was like, okay, sun rose, sunset, it's another day, 29 more, 15 more, 7 more, 3 more, 1 more, woohoo. But guess what? God never told Noah how long the waters would prevail. He never told him what was going to come after those 40 days and 40 nights. The only thing Noah knew was in Genesis 6:18, God said, I will confirm my covenant with you, which means a covenant's coming. But Noah doesn't know what it is. And have you ever been there? Like I feel like I'm there a lot, which is just like, God, I know you're good. I know you're gracious. I know you have a plan and purpose for my life, but what is it? Because right now I feel like I'm stuck in a job, in a position, in a friendship, in a relationship. I'm just giving examples now. I'm not speaking about myself. In a church, in a small group, in a lack of a small group, in a lack of community, and too much community, and too busy of a schedule, and not enough busy of a schedule. I'm stuck in all these things, and I feel stuck. And I know you said you'd get me through, and you did get me through, but now I'm here. And what's the next thing? Not only how are you going to get me through, but how are you going to get me out? Right? Like, I feel like that, if I was Noah, that's what I would be thinking is, you got me through the 40 days and 40 nights, but I need you to get me out now of this freaking boat that probably stinks. And I think what's okay to say is when you feel far from God, just because you feel far from him, like 150 days. How many months is that? Let's just do, this is not going to be exact math, but that's 5 months. 5 months. Can you imagine? This episode's airing mid-February, March, April, July. That's like the summer, June, July. How many nights do you think Noah was like, God, are you there? Do you remember? Because I remember. And at first, I was so grateful you brought me this ark to be in because it protected me from the floodwaters. But now, the place that once sought provision, it feels like a prison because I'm stuck in it. And I can't help but think, is this how it's always going to be? Do you know how many times Noah probably thought in those 150 days, God, is this how it's always going to be? And for some of us, that's real. It's like the question, God, is this how it's always going to be? Am I always going to be dealing with this PTSD? Am I always going to be dealing with this fear? Am I always going to be dealing with this OCD? Am I always going to be dealing with the inability to get pregnant? Am I always going to be dealing with the rejection from jobs, just one after another, rejection from universities and colleges, just one after another? Am I always going to be dealing with this social anxiety? Am I always going to be dealing with this body dysmorphia or this eating disorder? And some of us, that's where we are. It's like, am I always going to be dealing with this thing that's not good? For some of us, we feel like we can't even be honest to God about how we're really feeling because the thing that we feel trapped in was once a blessing. You might have a kid with who's disabled and has extremely high needs, and you feel like you can't be honest to God about how exhausted you are because that kid is a blessing. And God did bless you with it. God did bless Noah with an ark. He did, to protect him. But I bet you Noah at times still felt like, I'd love to catch a break from this ark. These walls that protected me now feel like confinement. And I'm grateful for it, but I also am like, is this all there is? Am I going to be taking care of my kid for the rest of my life? Am I going to be like, God got me into this university, but now am I going to be paying the bills of this university for the rest of my life? And sometimes that's true. It's like, what is a blessing is also hard. And sometimes there are burdens to blessings. It's not just all blessings. Like I think about marriage. I freaking love my husband. I am obsessed with my husband. I adore my husband. Marriage is hard. And it's a blessing, but it's hard. I've never in my life been aware of how selfish I am being married because I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, I am so used to doing things by myself and not asking for like advice or feedback because it's my life. But that's not the case with marriage. And some of us feel like, well, because God gave me the marriage and blessed me with it, I can't be honest to him about some of the things I'm feeling that maybe aren't all woohoo. And I'm just saying that. That's not like a personal anecdote. But some of us, that's real. I know for me, it's like, I'm trying to think of example, my corporate job. Let's use that. I am so grateful. My corporate job provides so well financially. And I've been so grateful for what God's done in that and given me. And like the finances from that are or why I'm able to do a podcast and be able to pay for resources that with editing and all that, I wouldn't be able to do that otherwise. But also, my corporate job feels like an arc I'm stuck in sometimes. It's protected me in seasons where I need finances to support my medical bills, like last year, insurance. It's been amazing. But those same walls that protected me sometimes feel like a prison. And I think what we see here with Noah and what we're going to see next time with God is God doesn't disregard the duality of those emotions. There can be weeping and there can be joy. There can be gratitude and there can be grumbling. There can be a posture of celebration and victory and a posture of surrender, saying, I've never been more confused in my life and never been more aware of how little I am. There can be confidence and calamity, uncertainty and certainty. It's never all one thing. I'm reading Ezra by myself in my quiet time. And it was talking about the temple, and it was just saying how in the temple, so basically when the Jews got exiled to Babylon, and then a couple of years later, King Cyrus, the king of Persia, let them go back and start building the temple in Jerusalem. And when they built the foundation, not the whole thing, but just the foundation, it said that everyone was celebrating and shouting so loud you could hear them from miles away. But at the same time, there was a group of people that were weeping because they had seen the original temple. And they were like, it's different. It's not the old one. So there was weeping and there was celebration. And I think as we see in Noah in this ark, the ark protected him. And eventually, after 5 months, you can imagine it probably felt like a prison too. And that's where God meets us, is in the complexity and the duality of life in that regard. So don't let the fact that you're feeling imprisoned stop you from recognizing the protection, but don't let the fact that, yes, you are being protected stop you from being honest to God about where you feel a burden, because our God can handle it all. Dear Lord, thank you for this time. Thank you for who you are. We love you. We lift up our hearts to you. We pray for protection, divine protection. We also pray for the courage to be honest with you about where we're at when we're feeling. In Jesus' name.